Can bring the jury.
It didn't earlier.
Very good. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, Lieutenant Bowman, looking at states 209 for identification only. The clear plastic clip that goes on the back of y'all's uniforms, what is that?
I believe that's an earpiece,
Okay.
or a clip that holds the earpiece in place.
And then on states 208, can you see the front of the earpiece?
I can, yes.
And you mentioned that you had seen the video from this case before, and I'll ask you to look on the screen behind you. This has already been introduced into evidence. You recognize Officer Slager and Officer Haversham.
Yes.
Can you see Officer Slager's earpiece?
I can't tell. I can see it now. Now I can see it.
How about now?
Yes, I can see it now.
And where is it?
It's on the back of his uniform near his collar.
Do you see it near his ear? You don't.
I don't. No, I don't.
You can see his shirt,
Yes.
and is it tucked or untucked?
It appears to be tucked.
belt there?
I can see his belt, yes.
And where are handcuffs kept?
Handcuffs are kept in that pouch on the back.
On the back?
Yes.
And what area of the belt is Officer Slager touching now? What's in that area?
It looks like his holster.
And Lieutenant Bowman, would you agree in this video, it doesn't look that Officer Slager is disheveled? Or would you call that disheveled?
Well, I can't see the front of his uniform. It's not untucked, if that's what you're asking. It's not untucked.
Would object to this evidence now and repeated showing of this 403 issue.
Yes, sir, it's overruled.
And can you see now, the thing that goes right here, if you look at me for a sec, this thing right here, what is that?
That's his walkie, his walkie mic.
walkie-talkie, and it's
His
there.
microphone to it, yes.
Now, Lieutenant Bowman, you mentioned that, I believe on the cross, that crime is unpredictable.
Yes, correct.
And you don't know exactly when something's going to happen.
Correct.
But you do know, and your department knows, of peak times and times that you are more concerned than others regarding situations.
When they do their analysis, yes, they put a time with that. They're aware of the time, yes.
You don't have the same number of people on duty at all times of every day,
No,
because you have to manage resources, correct?
correct.
And the resources and manpower that you have, it's not a secret, right?
Correct.
And you have roll call every morning,
That's correct.
right? So that everybody who's on will know what's available to them, correct?
The objection is overruled.
Correct.
That's why you have roll calls, right? One of the reasons.
One of the reasons, yes.
Okay. And you would agree, Lieutenant Bowman, that shortages in manpower affect the discretion that you use?
Yes,
And whether or not you have backup affects the discretion and your decision-making in any event, correct?
correct, it could, yes.
And if there is a shooting on the street or in the projects or wherever, you interview witnesses right then and right there on the scene, correct?
Correct.
And you expect them to give you the truth of what they were called, is that right?
That's correct.
Whether or not they've been involved.
Yes,
And there is no different rule or different standard for police officers versus ordinary witnesses, is there?
no, there's not.
And you, in fact, arrest suspects daily who've been involved in very traumatic events. Do you not?
You may answer.
Yes,
And you rely on what they tell you.
correct.
You rely on what witnesses to traumatic events tell you, correct?
That's correct.
And then you take apart what they told you and compare it to the scene.
All right, please, rephrase the question.
After you've interviewed witnesses and suspects, and they've given you information, what do you do with that information?
We use it to see what our next step is, how we proceed.
And you use it to corroborate
Correct,
what they
yes.
told you, correct?
Yes,
Or to discredit what they told you?
yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Defendants 11, are you familiar with this photograph?
Yes, I am.
Now that we offer this into evidence at this time,
We don't have objections.
To admit it without objection.
do you mind stepping down? No.
Stepping down?
We haven't done this before. You keep your shirt tucked in.
It's just tucked in.
And how, can I pull this belt off? Is there any protection on the belt that keeps it from coming off?
There's a clamp on the front, there's belt keepers around it.
So it's not like the belt I wear,
No,
correct?
no, correct.
And how about the buttons on your shirt? If you show the jury, turn around, please.
The buttons aren't functional.
These are fake buttons, aren't they?
Correct.
Now, in the photographs, I'm sorry. With reference to defendants 11, if you look at that while they're bringing the picture up, look at Mr. Officer Slager's left leg, if you would, please. Do you know what that strap is on his left leg?
Yes, I do.
And do police officers generally wear those?
Some do, yes. I personally don't, but some wear them, yes.
And what again is the level of force, the continuum of force number 1? Is what? Presence?
Presence, yes.
And that would include the uniform?
Correct.
And what is the purpose of what's on his left leg in terms of the continuum of force and presence?
That's a strap that connects to his shirt tails and holds it down.
So that his shirt tail is held down as a result of wearing those straps.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, tell us, in that photograph, is that you, the photograph?
It is.
And is that a bottle of Durell in the trunk of the car?
Alcohol gel, yes.
And was that used to clean up Mr. Slager?
It was, yes.
And that was before the photographs were taken?
I'm not sure of the time frame of the photographs.
In any
I
event-
believe so, but I'm not sure 100%.
Okay, in any event, Mr. Slager, on scene, cleaned off his uniform and cleaned off the injuries he had sustained. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, the earpiece he was wearing that day, is that like somebody who would be listening to music kind of earpieces?
It's a little different. I don't personally, I've never worn one, but it's not just like an earbud that sticks in, no.
It's molded to the ear, is that correct?
They can be, yes, yes.
On the photograph of State's Exhibit 208, have you seen this? Did they show you this photograph?
They did, yes.
Is that it?
You objected.
But they showed you this evidence, correct?
Correct.
Can you see blood over Officer Slager's shirt?
I didn't notice it, no, sir.
Did you see the blood in person that day on Officer Slager's shirt?
I don't recall seeing blood on his shirt, no.
The equipment that Officer Slager was wearing that day, do you know how much it weighs in total?
Not precise, no, sir, I don't. I know how much mine weighs. It's approximately 15 pounds with everything.
And was Officer Slager wearing a vest that day?
Yes, he was.
And if Officer Slager had been tased that day, would the vest have prevented him from feeling the
I would
electric?
assume so, but I don't know for sure.
Is the weapon that he was carrying, is it a Glock? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that secured in one's belt?
It's secured in the holster. Yes, sir.
And the reason for that security is to prevent somebody from taking it for you?
Um,
A holster that was used in April of 2015 by the North Charleston Police Department required double action in order to remove it?
Yes. There's a snap, and you'd have to actually tilt the gun to remove it from the holster.
So it's not like wide earth type of things where you just pull it up?
Correct.
It requires an effort to manipulate it before it comes out?
That's correct.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You may step down, sir.
Now, they introduced an exhibit, now I have some questions about. Questions regarding that exhibit.
You've had redirect, and that's it for these witnesses.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State called James Gann. Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial in this case, to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do, sir. Just please state your first and last name and spell your last name loudly, please.
James Gann, Gann.
So, beginning, could you please tell our jury where you're employed?
I'm a sergeant with the North Charleston Police Department, City of North Charleston.
And how long have you been with the North Charleston Police Department?
A little over 19 years, sir. Day shift team 1, South Bureau, shift supervisor.
And was that the same position you held in April, or on April 4th, 2015?
Yes, sir.
And did you have the occasion to be on duty that morning about 9:30 a.m.?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you team supervisor just for the South Bureau that morning?
No, sir. That morning, I had the responsibilities of my squad plus day shift team 1 Central as well.
And who was generally the sergeant for day shift central?
Sergeant Webb is day shift Central sergeant.
And where was Sergeant Webb that morning?
He was on annual leave, sir.
Is that unusual for a sergeant to have to be able to cover two zones or
No, sir.
two bureaus?
No, sir.
That's kind of par for the course.
Yes, sir. We kind of look out for each other. Yes, sir.
What bureau was Michael Slager attached to?
Officer Slager was attached to day shift Central team 1 under Ron Webb, Sergeant Ron Webb.
So he was not normally under your supervision? is that
No,
correct?
sir. No, sir.
But he was this morning?
On that morning, yes, sir. He was under my supervision.
And could you tell our jury what you were doing that morning about 9:30?
Approximately 9:30, I was conducting a traffic stop on Dorchester and Scarsdale.
Okay, and that was in South Bureau, is that correct?
Actually, it's Central Bureau, sir.
So you were actually in Central?
Yes, sir.
And what happened while you were involved with that traffic stop?
As I was running my driver's information, I heard over the radio Officer Slager conduct his traffic stop, and a few moments later I heard him in a foot pursuit.
Okay, so you were not real concerned about just the traffic stop, is that correct?
I was aware of his general location, yes, sir.
Okay, but you did become, you paid more attention, should I say, when he called the 1080, is that correct?
Yes, sir. When he declared that he was in a foot pursuit, tones dropping from the dispatcher, and then I discontinued my traffic stop.
Okay, and so you discontinued your traffic stop, and what did you do?
I proceeded to Officer Slager's location.
And what route did you take to assist Officer Slager?
I left the parking lot of the gas station, Dorchester Road, took a left onto Montague, entered the on-ramp connector between International and Montague to get back on 526 to Rivers Avenue.
Okay. Now, while you were en route to the general location, did you receive any information via the dispatcher radio regarding a more specific location for you?
Yes, I did, just for clarification, I asked, exactly, what the address, the cross-reference for Craig Street was, because I was getting confused with another street.
Okay. And were you aware of the location on the yellow driveway behind?
Yes, sir, I'm familiar with the area.
That was broadcast over the radio as well, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And after that, what was the next radio transmission you received?
The next transmission I heard from Officer Slager was that taser deployment.
Okay. And after that?
Second taser deployment, and then, he declared that he discharged his firearm and he took his taser.
Now, when you were told about this yellow driveway behind the pawn shop, did you know what they were talking about?
I knew it, yes, sir, yes, sir.
And do you know approximately how long it took you to get to that location?
No, sir, but I was told I got there fairly quickly for the distance I traveled.
And is this location in Charleston County?
Yes, it is.
And how did you actually get back to the yellow driveway? You coming from the Craig Street side or the Rivers Avenue?
No, sir, I came in off of Craig, oh, excuse me, I came off of Riverside, Rivers Avenue side. I cut through the parking lot of the Goodwill Training Center and the Gerald's Tires and Laundromat and Marie's Diner. There's a little alleyway that goes parallel to the yellow driveway to the vacant lot.
And if I could just refer you to State's Exhibit number 1.
Yes, sir.
If you would, just tell them from what direction you were coming, where you turned in, and how you got back to that field and where you parked your car.
526 is off the picture down this way. I came in off of Rivers here. I cut through the parking lot through that exact driveway, or I'm pretty sure it's that driveway. Cut across the parking lot, entered here in between the two buildings, went down this road, took a left onto the driveway, and my vehicle ended up right about here.
Okay? And that, of course, was depicted on your dash cam video, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
I'd like to play you a portion of State's Exhibit number 2. This would be the camera from your cruiser, is that correct? And, well, that building right in front of you would be Marie's Diner, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Let me ask you, did you happen to see this fella standing right there as you were coming up?
Not when I was driving in, no, sir.
Those two officers over to the left as you were driving up, or who?
Officer Habersham and Officer Slager.
You were the third police officer there on the scene, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you do after parking your cruiser?
I went to my trunk of my vehicle, got my PPE kit, which contains some first aid supplies, and went to aid Officer Habersham with administering first aid.
And who assisted you in tending to the victim?
Officer Habersham.
Had the victim's shirt been removed?
As I approached, Officer Habersham was removing the shirt.
Do you know how he removed the shirt?
I couldn't tell you if he had a pair of scissors or a knife. I just know he was,
And was the victim face up or face down when you arrived on the scene?
he was face down.
Was he still cuffed?
I do not recall.
And what injuries did you notice on the victim when you arrived?
I noticed some gunshot wounds, what appeared to be gunshot wounds, yes, sir.
To what area of the body?
There was one in the collarbone area, up in the shoulder area, and to the side and to the back. I believe he had one to the lower buttocks area. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. You recall which side, whether it was left or right?
Not exactly, sir.
Any taser bars? Observe any taser bars in them?
I don't recall.
Now, what was the victim's condition when you began attending to?
He was unresponsive.
Was he ever responsive at any time that you were there?
No, sir.
Did you observe any breathing?
No, sir.
Did you observe a pulse?
No, sir.
What did you do when you were unable to locate any vital signs?
We turned him over, and I started chest compressions.
And chest compressions are part of cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Where was Officer Slager while y'all were attending to Mr. Scott?
He was off to the side.
And do you know who he was with?
Initially, he was with Sergeant Webb, after Sergeant Webb arrived on scene.
And briefly, I'd like to direct your attention to States 237. And if you would, could you just identify all the folks in that picture? If you can.
It's Officer Habersham kneeling on the ground. That's me approaching with my PPE kit. Officer Slager with his back to us, and Sergeant Webb with his hand on Officer Slager's shoulder.
Okay. And just to be clear, when you saw States Exhibit 2 previously, you driving up and stopping, that is your car, and you depicted in States Exhibit 237.
Correct, that's my vehicle, department issued vehicle, 227. Did you notice Sergeant Webb taking Officer Slager's gun that kind of? No, sir, I did not.
How long did you continue with the chest compressions?
Until I was relieved by EMS. I couldn't give you an exact number.
And at any time, were there any signs of life from Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Do you recall seeing anything else in the area of the body while you were attending to him?
I do, sir. I remember seeing a cell phone near the head of Mr. Scott, and I believe there was a taser cartridge somewhere in there.
And what did you do after you were relieved by EMS and North Charleston Fire Department?
Took a step back, went over to where Officer Slager and Lieutenant Bowman were, and stood by there for a moment.
Okay. Now, at some point, were you present when Lieutenant Bowman asked Officer Slager what happened?
Yes, I was.
And where was Mr. Slager, Lieutenant Bowman?
I remember Lieutenant Bowman's vehicle.
And do you recall what Officer Slager said when he was asked by Lieutenant Bowman what had happened?
Yes, sir.
And if you could, what did he say?
He went through the traffic stop. He said he observed a vehicle with a taillight out, conducted a traffic stop, and they pulled into the parking lot of a Vance Auto. Subject exited the vehicle. Officer Slager directed him back into. He made the initial contact, collected the vehicle information, driver's license. As he went back to the vehicle and started to run the driver's information, subject exited the vehicle, and that's when the foot pursuit started. He continued to chase him down Craig Street, turned into the vacant lot behind the Money Man, and deployed. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Deployed his taser for the first time. Taser did not have the desired effect. Mr. Scott continued to flee into the vacant lot. He re-engaged him with a taser and a second cartridge. At that time, Mr. Scott fell down, and he went to apply the handcuffs to him, and that's when they started fighting, and fighting over the up, pointed the taser at him, and that's when he deployed his department-issued firearm.
Okay, so he said, who stood up?
They stood up, Mr. Scott.
And what did he say Mr. Scott did with And what did he do when Mr. Scott pointed the taser at him?
He deployed his,
And what had happened with Mr. Scott when he fired?
because he didn't go into any further detail about that.
He didn't tell you that driver went down and then he handcuffed.
Correct, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, he did. I apologize.
Did y'all have any reason to believe that Officer Slager had done anything wrong with that?
No, sir.
Was he under any kind of investigation?
No, sir.
At any time during this recitation of what had occurred, did he indicate that he had been assaulted by Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir.
And what particular?
When he went to initially handcuff him after the taser deployment, the second taser deployment, Mr. Scott turned on him and started fighting with him over the taser and started fighting on the ground.
Okay. Well, when you're fighting, tell me specifically what he said that indicated they were fighting. Did he say that he was punched by Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Did he say that he was kicked by Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Did he say that he was stood upon by Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Did he say that he was scratched by Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Struggling over the taser?
Yes, sir. They started going over the weapon. Yes, sir.
And of course, have you been tased?
Yes, sir, I have.
Because you're kind of a taser guru there in North Charleston now, aren't you?
I am the master taser instructor. Yes, sir.
And being drive stunned by a taser, how does that feel? Stunned.
Yes, sir.
is not incapacitating, but it hurts.
If there's a bar, like a three-point hookup like we discussed in our interviews, it can cause incapacitation with a drive stun.
Correct, but just a normal drive stun is not incapacitating.
No, sir. It's,
Could potentially be also if they get them on the neck area, is that correct?
if there's a brachial stun, and yes, sir, it can incapacitate you.
Okay, but your typical drive stun basically hurts like that.
Correct, sir.
And would it be normal for Mr. Scott to try to get himself out of that pain if that were occurring?
Any subject would try to get away from pain. Yes, sir.
Now, based upon what you were told by Officer Slager at the scene, what was your understanding considering the proximity of Officer Slager?
My understanding was that Mr. Scott had the taser, and they were fairly close together. Yes, sir.
Right on top of one another, correct?
Within 3 or 4 feet. Yes, sir.
And based upon what you were told by Officer Slager at the scene, was it your understanding that that Mr. Scott was...
That's what I believed.
After hearing Officer Slager's account of what happened, what did you do afterwards?
At that time, Lieutenant Bowman took Officer Slager away. I stayed on scene to assist with marking evidence, helping the evidence custodians, evidence technicians set up a tent because it was raining over Mr. Scott, marking different evidence throughout the area, looking for blast doors and what we call aphids that comes from.
So y'all weren't really obligated to do that because y'all don't generally get involved in officer-involved shooting cases?
No, sir. We just wanted to mark evidence so nobody would mess with it.
Okay, and what is protocol for investigation of officer-involved shooting?
Protocol is, first thing we do is make the notifications to the command staff, and then the next notification would be going to SLED because SLED would be investigating the shooting, not us.
And
That's loud.
did I hear y'all?
No, sir.
I'd like to play you a portion of State Exhibit number 3, if I could, sir. This is Officer Sergeant Webb's dash cam, and could you identify that fellow that just walked in front of the car?
Could you please back it up a little bit, please? I didn't see.
can.
Appears to be Sergeant Ron Webb.
Okay. Who is the normal sergeant for Central, for Officer Slager, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
I'd like you to continue watching this if you would, sir. Who is that walking up from the right side now where Sergeant Webb is?
Yes, sir. That's me. Yes, sir. That's me. I couldn't tell because of the raindrops.
And what are y'all looking for over there on that side of the column?
I tell you the truth, I don't recall. I don't.
Would it be possible y'all trying to find shell casings?
That could be possible, sir.
On the question.
Objection sustained.
So you indicated earlier y'all were looking for evidence. That's what y'all are doing now?
Yes, sir.
Webb appears to be doing now, what he's marked.
No, sir, I do not.
Now, while you and Sergeant Webb were looking for evidence,
Yes, sir. Ditch.
okay? Yeah, we would offer State's Exhibit number 74. I believe. And if you would, use this, and if you would stand up to the one that's on screen, and if you could, point out your car and point out where the hat and watch were and what all those little white things are over there to the left of that.
This is my cruiser, unit 226. The wallet, watch, and a hat. There were some shell casings right here. This is where Sergeant Webb was placing some of his business cards.
Okay.
So there were some shell casings here. I'm not exactly sure what's there.
Okay. And Mr. Scott's body would be located where?
If you go off picture, his body would be more over here, this area.
Okay. Now, did you observe any evidence of taser deployment while you were there?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what, how many and in what locations?
Again with a pointer, or?
I don't think it actually shows on
Okay.
here, but
There were blast doors, which were green. They're very bright colored green.
what
And
does
they're
green designate, by the way?
just the type of cartridge it is by foot. How big of a lead that you have, plus they're extended probes, which means the barb itself is a little bit longer.
Okay. And then, and just for point of reference, different blast door may mean a shorter wire
And a different probe, yes, sir.
and where did you, how many taser deployments did you see evidence of while you were out?
2.
Um,
There was one generally, you see the 2, well, it's gone. There was
we can
one,
put it back up if you want.
okay, well,
74.
if you see toward the front,
You can use that thing to just show them.
back this way, can you give me a larger picture? Back in this area,
Right at the very beginning.
right at the beginning of the entrance there were 2 blast doors and aphids, which were the anti-felon identification tags that indicated there was a deployment here.
And
Close.
and if you would, since you mentioned aphids, would you tell our jury what an aphid is?
An aphid is it's a piece of paper that's got a micro printing of the serial number of the cartridge that it was in. So each cartridge is identified by the aphid, which would have the same serial number on the cartridge as would the aphid itself.
And to lack of a better term, aphid's kind of like confetti, right? Like shoots
Yes, sir.
Confetti out?
Yes, sir. It's batting. If you think of a shotgun shell that had batting in it,
Okay.
that helps project the
Okay.
probes itself.
And did you observe any second deployment?
Yes, sir. About in this area here, there was another cartridge, blast door, and some more aphids.
And did you observe any second deployment?
Another cartridge, blast door, and some more aphids in this general vicinity, right around this light pole, somewhere right in here.
And did you observe any taser rounds?
I don't recall at this time, sir.
Okay.
How many more minutes do you think you have for this witness?
That might be it right there, Your Honor. Let me check with my cook I think that would be a good place for me to stop.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch. We'll take an hour and a half for lunch. Have a good lunch. Please do not discuss the case. All right, sir, we need you back at about 2:30 or so. Please do not discuss your case with anyone during lunch.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll be in recess for an hour and a half.